We are up to day 86 of Poetry Lockdown. Um, I have a poem from the Native American poet Joy Harjo. Um, and actually, like a lot of poetry now that I'm sharing in the lockdown, this is definitely a poet whose work I've come to admire more because of one of my students. She did a fantastic job with what I called this poetry synthesis essay project, where students really spent a month and a half studying one's poet's work. And this was definitely a poem that this student spent a lot of time with, and her admiration for it was infectious. And I feel like it's definitely speaking to our moment. So I'm going to share it with you. And I believe this was written in 2002. So I believe shortly after 9/11. When the world as we knew it ended, by Joy Harjo. We were dreaming on an occupied island at the farthest edge of a trembling nation when it went down. Two towers rose up from the east island of commerce and touched the sky. Men walked on the moon. Oil was sucked dry by two brothers. Then it went down, swallowed by a fire dragon, by oil and fear, eaten whole. It was coming. We had been watching since the eve of the missionaries in their long and solemn clothes to see what would happen. We saw it from the kitchen window over the sink as we made coffee, cooked rice and potatoes, enough for an army. We saw it all as we changed diapers and fed the babies. We saw it through the branches of the knowledgeable tree, through the snags of stars, through the sun and storms from our knees as we bathed and washed the floors. The conference of the birds warned us as they flew over destroyers in the harbor, parked there since the first takeover. It was by their song and talk we knew when to rise, when to look out the window to the commotion going on, the magnetic field thrown off by grief. We heard it, the racket in every corner of the world, as the hunger for war rose up in those who would steal to be president, to be king or emperor, to own the trees, stones, and everything else that moved about the earth, inside the earth, and above it. We knew it was coming, tasted the winds, who gathered intelligence from every leaf and flower, from every mountain, sea, and desert, from every prayer and song all over this tiny universe, floating in the skies of infinite being. And then it was over. This world we had grown to love, for its sweet grasses, for the many-colored horses and fishes, for the shimmering possibilities while dreaming. But then there were the seeds to plant, and the babies who needed milk and comforting, and someone picked up a guitar or ukulele from the rubble and began to sing about the light flutter, the kick beneath the skin of the earth we felt there beneath us, a warm animal, a song being born between the legs of her poem. I love the cadence of this poem. I love how large it is, how huge-hearted. Um, the end of the world, especially for someone like me, raised in a Christian faith tradition. You often think about sort of just like the Last Judgment and things like this. I like that this poem has the end of the world happen, and then there were seeds to plant. And the babies who needed milk and comforting. And to me, that's real. And I also think it's helpful to remember right now when I feel like another end of the world has come. And we need to do those things. We need to plant the seeds. We need to give the babies milk and comforting. And to me, this poem really speaks to poetry's capacity to name those simple, honest human gestures that need to happen even when the world is ending around you. So I'm moved by this poem. Thank you, Joy Harjo, for writing it. Thank you to my student for studying and sharing this poet with me. And I'll read the last two stanzas again because I think they're so powerful. But then there were the seeds to plant and the babies who needed milk and comforting, and someone picked up a guitar or ukulele from the rubble and began to sing about the light flutter, the kick beneath the skin of the earth we felt there. Beneath us, a warm animal, a song being born between the legs of her, a poem. Thank you.